Listen up. In April 2026, the one thing the Kremlin feared most finally happened. For the first time in nearly 2 years, since the legendary Kursk incursion, Russia recorded a net territorial loss. Do you realize what that means? While Moscow's state channels are screaming about steady progress, the actual front line has started to shrink. Putin's Great Spring Offensive, intended to be the final chord in the battle for Donbas, didn't just stall, it went into reverse. Now, get this. Today, we're breaking down the data that the Russian General Staff is desperately trying to bury. You're going to see numbers that'll make your head spin. Advance rates have plummeted by 80% compared to last year, but that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Behind the closed doors of the Kremlin, there's absolute panic because their meat grinder has finally run out of meat, and their vaunted command structure has collapsed into chaos thanks to a single technological sabotage most people aren't even talking about. Why is this video the most important thing you'll watch today? Because we're going to show you the point of no return. We'll explain exactly how Ukraine transitioned from battered defender to a strategy that's systematically erasing Russian logistics 200 kilometers deep. Summer 2026 might just be the end of the Russian army as we know it. Today, we are performing a deep dive into the collapse of Putin's spring campaign. We'll walk through every lie told by General Gerasimov, peek into the empty barracks, and explain why the de-Russification of Ukrainian land isn't just a slogan. It's a mathematically proven fact confirmed by satellites and analysts. This will change how you understand the trajectory of this war. Here's the kicker. This war isn't just a picture on a screen. It's a massive vortex, sucking in resources, lives, and the future. If you thought everything was going according to plan, here's the truth. The manpower shortage on the front is so dire that Russia has started recruiting students under threat of expulsion and tricking migrants from Africa and Asia into the trenches. That means tomorrow, this vortex could touch everyone. The economy is fracturing. Strikes on oil refineries have already stripped the budget of billions of dollars. And when the state runs out of money and people, it starts coming for yours. Your security and your wallet are directly tied to what's happening right now in the fields near Kramatorsk. Picture this dark scenario. If we don't understand this now, if we keep believing reports about capturing another barn, you could wake up in a reality where mobilization becomes creeping and eternal, where inflation eats your savings because of destroyed refineries, and the front edges closer to borders that once seemed untouchable. We're on the brink of a systemic collapse where orders take hours to arrive and people die simply because they have no way to call for help. 5. Look at the story of Ivan. Just an ordinary guy caught in the stealth mobilization of February 2026. Do you know how much training he got? 5 days of medical and 5 days waiting for rotation. That's it. 10 days after his physical, he was sitting in a trench under a hail of Ukrainian drones. No connection, no artillery support, stuck in mud so thick you can't pull your boots out. In March alone, there were 35,000 fewer Ivans. This isn't a war, it's industrial-scale disposal. 12. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Understanding how modern warfare actually works is the key to knowing how it ends. Ukraine has found the antidote to meat assaults. It's not just courage, it's math and technology. Today, you'll see exactly how this machine is starting to grind down the old Soviet doctrine, bringing an end that seemed impossible just a year ago. Let's start with the hard truth. Russia's spring offensive, hyped as the decisive blow, has officially turned into a territorial retreat. Listen, the numbers don't lie. In April 2026, the Russian army showed negative growth. The Institute for the Study of War confirms a net loss of 116 square kilometers. Do you get it?
While propaganda screams about taking control, in reality, Ukrainian counterattacks are biting off more than Russian assaults can chew. The last time this happened was August 2024, during the Kursk incursion. But now, it's happening in the critical sectors of Donbas. Let's compare. At the start of 2025, Russia was seizing an average of 9.76 square kilometers a day. In 2026, that number plummeted to 2.9. That's a 70% drop in speed. See that last column? To capture 1 mile of Ukrainian land in 2026, Putin has to spend 6 times more men than he did a year ago. That is the true cost of meat assaults, when the enemy has drones and you only have mud. 1. What's the core of this failure? Russia hit the wall of diminishing returns. They threw tens of thousands of soldiers at the fortress belt of Donbas, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Kostiantynivka. But instead of a breakthrough, they got a swamp, literally. Spring 2026 was exceptionally wet. Heavy armor is simply drowning in the Ukrainian black soil. But the worst part for them isn't the weather, it's Ukraine's active defense. The AFU isn't just sitting in trenches, they are constantly counterattacking, creating grey zones where Russian troops can't dig in. We are seeing a process analysts call de-Russification. Ukraine is taking back its land at a rate of nearly 4 square kilometers a day. So why are the official reports from Moscow so optimistic? You won't believe it, but Russian generals have created a virtual reality where they've already conquered half of Ukraine. And the weirdest part? Putin actually seems to believe them. How Gerasimov paints victories and why it's going to finish off the Russian army, that's in the next chapter. Now get this, while soldiers in the trenches are dying from a lack of comms, the staff officers are drawing beautiful reports. Do you know who Valery Gerasimov is? The chief of the Russian General Staff. In April 2026, he boldly announced, "We have captured 1,700 square kilometers and 80 settlements since the start of the year." Sounds impressive, right? Except there's a catch. Independent satellites and even pro-Russian mill bloggers say it's a lie. A blatant one. Russia's real gains are 5 times smaller than what they're claiming. Can you imagine that level of disconnect? 7. Let's break down this fake triumph point by point. Gerasimov claims to have captured 70% of Lyman. ISW looks at the map. Russian troops haven't even entered the city. He says they control 75% of Novopavlivka. In reality, they're barely holding 20%. He's even claimed full control of Luhansk 3 times now, even though fighting continues. Why do they do it? It's not just propaganda for the TV, it's a survival mechanism. In Putin's system, the one who brings bad news falls out of a window. So, the generals invented the capture on credit tactic. They announce a village is taken as soon as a single sabotage group runs in, even if they're wiped out an hour later. But the report to Putin already says, "The village is ours." 7. But here's where it gets really weird. The problem isn't just the lies, it's that the Russian army has gone blind. In February 2026, Elon Musk, at the request of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, blocked Starlink access for Russian units. 5 days later, the Kremlin shot itself in the foot by throttling Telegram. Here's the kicker. The modern Russian army built its entire command structure on these 2 American platforms. Without them, their kill chain, the time from spotting a target to firing, exploded from 60 seconds to several hours. Before, a drone sent coordinates to a Telegram chat and artillery hit instantly. Now, that info has to go through a chain of officers, staff reports, and hand-delivered notes. By the time the order reaches the gun, the Ukrainian tank is 10 kilometers away. This is a technological rollback to World War I. Soldiers are complaining they'll be using carrier pigeons soon. 5. You might ask, if they have no comms and they're losing ground, how are they holding the front at all? The answer is simple and terrifying. They are plugging the holes with bodies.
But where do they get the people when the volunteers have dried up?
Let me tell you about Alabuga Start and how Russian universities turned into recruitment centers. You won't hear this on the news. 8. Listen, Putin has a giant problem. His meat grinder strategy requires a constant flow of meat. But the 2026 recruitment target of 409,000 contract soldiers is falling apart. Right now, Russia is losing people faster than it can hire them. In March 2026, they hit a grim record: 35,351 casualties. Meanwhile, they only recruited about 28,000. That's a deficit of 7,000 men a month. Do you understand? An entire brigade just vanishes from the map every single month. To close this gap, the Kremlin has gone to extremes. 9. Get this. The Russian Ministry of Education issued a quota. Every major university must send 2% of its student population to the front. That's roughly 44,000 young kids who will get draft notices instead of diplomas. Do you know how it works? At the Higher School of Economics, students with failing grades are offered an alternative to expulsion, a contract with the Ministry of Defense. They're promised drone pilot roles, but after 3 months, they're all dumped into the assault infantry. It's a one-way ticket. And that's not all. Russia has started a massive hunt for migrants. Trafficking. The UK has sanctioned networks tricking people from Iraq, Somalia, and Nigeria with promises of factory jobs, only to send them into meat assaults. Alabuga Start. In Tatarstan, they created a project to lure young women and men from Africa for studies, but in reality, they are forced to assemble kamikaze drones for 12 hours a day. Mercenaries. Moscow plans to recruit 18,500 foreigners in 2026. Right now, Ukraine holds prisoners of war from 48 different countries, including Nepal, Cuba, and even Italy. Do you see the tragedy? These people aren't warriors. They are a disposable resource. Their training lasts 5 to 10 days. Ivan, who I mentioned earlier, is a real example. What can you learn in a week? Only how to crawl to a crater and die there. This army is hemorrhaging professionalism. When you replace a veteran paratrooper with a terrified student or a tricked migrant from Bangladesh, your combat effectiveness hits 0. That is exactly why we saw those 116 square kilometers of net loss in April. Russia can no longer advance qualitatively, it can only slowly bleed out in place. But if Russia is weakening, how is Ukraine seizing the initiative? The answer lies in Kyiv's long arm. Have you heard of the Zozulya and FP2 drones? These birds are currently stripping Putin of billions of dollars by destroying what was once considered the deep rear. Check out what modern war looks like without a single tank firing a shot. Now get this. While the Russian army is mired in mud, Ukraine has shifted to active defense. The primary tool? Middle-range drones. This is the new reality of 2026. Listen, these aren't the tiny quadcopters you're used to seeing. Ukraine has built a fleet of drones that strike 200 kilometers deep. In April 2026, the number of these strikes quadrupled. Do you know what that means? Russia no longer has a safe rear. Warehouses, headquarters, repair bases, everything is a target. Let's look at the specs. FP2 drone carries a 100 kilograms warhead up to 200 kilometers. That's enough to level a hangar or a locomotive. Zozulya drone, the record breaker, can fly 1,100 kilometers with a 50 kilograms gift. These are the ones reaching the Urals. April stats: 160 middle-range strikes. Result: 65 ammo dumps, 33 drone control points, and 25 air defense systems destroyed. But the biggest pain for Putin is oil. Ukraine realized that to stop a tank, you don't have to hit it. You just have to burn the refinery making its fuel and blow up the terminal bringing in the money to pay for the war. In March 2026, Ukraine launched more kamikaze drones at Russia than Russia launched at Ukraine, over 7,000. Strikes on Tuapse, Samara and Sevastopol have slashed oil export capacity by 40 to 45%. Do you understand that number? $1 billion hit in early 2026 alone. That's money that won't pay the salaries of those mercenaries and students. This is the systemic dismantling of the war machine. Ukraine is hitting the wallet and the gas tank, while the Russian infantry tries to storm empty fields near Bakhmut. So the most important question is, what's next? Crimea? Donbas? The map of 2026 is changing before our eyes. And now, I'm going to summarize who you were before this video and who you've become now. Listen closely. This is the finish line. Listen, we are living in an era of information chaos. Tomorrow, you'll see another headline about a victory, but now you know how to check the numbers. If you want to survive this flood of lies and see the real picture before everyone else, head over to my Telegram channel. I post satellite imagery and analytics that YouTube might shadow ban. Link in the description. Subscribe now so you aren't one of the ones blindsided by the systemic shifts already underway. Let's wrap this up. Who were you 20 minutes ago? Someone who heard about a spring offensive and maybe feared a frontline collapse. Who are you now? You know the truth. Russia is losing more land than it captures for the first time in 2 years. 1. The Russian army is blind and deaf because of the Starlink and Telegram blackout, reverting command to Napoleonic-era messenger services. 5. The meat assault resource is tapped out. They're using students and African migrants with only 10 days of training. 8. Ukrainian middle-range drones are methodically burning down the Russian economy and logistics 200 kilometers deep. 29. This isn't just news, it's a death sentence for the old doctrine. Putin's spring of 2026 was supposed to be a triumph. Instead, it's the beginning of the end for his military machine. Thanks for watching until the end. Remember, knowledge is your only armor. See you in the next one.